Welcome to Week 5 of Self-Publishing for Ministry Professionals. As I mentioned earlier, I am so glad that you joined me for this 5th session in our course. I'm really excited that you're here with me again, and really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this course. It means a lot to me personally, and it's really cool just to be able to tell my friends and co-workers and supervisors at St. Louis Christian College that there's definitely an audience for this course, and really, to be quite honest with you, I'm excited because this kind of gives me some evidence or some, I'm not sure what you would say, gives me a reason to suggest that we should offer something like this again. I don't know when exactly, maybe this fall, maybe next spring, maybe not on the topic of self-publishing necessarily, maybe something on productivity or some other kind of seminar, webinar type of topic that's not necessarily like Bible content or something that's in a traditional Bible college class, something that's really directed toward ministry professionals, something that's a topic that would be really practical and immediately helpful. So we'll see about that, but once again, thanks for joining me because that helps bring all those things about. So let's jump in, folks. Tonight's topic is on formatting your book for ebook, print, and audio versions. Again, this is session 5. And this is probably the most technical of the sessions that we're going to be diving into during this whole class. I don't want you to get overwhelmed or discouraged by any of this, so just kind of keep an open mind, and I will do my best to not overcomplicate things and dive into things too heavily technical, because honestly, this topic could take up a whole series of classes, honestly, because there's so much technical information that's possible. But I want to try and keep things kind of quick and simple and give you some basic thoughts as to how to go about bringing your book to life in these different versions. First of all, before we jump in, let's take a look at what we did last week. Last week in week 4 of this course, we talked about editing. Specifically, we talked about what is editing. We talked about the types of editing that you can do on a book. I gave you some tools and tips for editing. We talked about whether or not to pay for an editor. And I just went through my editing process for my last book, which is a small book called The Artist's Suitcase. Also, we talked about cover design for your book. And then finally, we talked about copyright and ownership of your material. Specifically, if you work for an organization that, in essence, pays you to create content, such as preaching or teaching, something like that, who owns that material and how do you go about navigating those waters? And that can be sort of a complex issue. I'm not going to dive into that again tonight, obviously, because we talked about that last week, but that's just kind of a rundown and a reminder of what we talked about in our previous session. So let's move on to tonight's topic. Actually, before we do that, let me remind you about the homework from last week, which was pick 1 or 2 of the editing tips or tools that I mentioned and share in the Facebook group. Some of you have been sharing, which is awesome, and I really appreciate that. Also, just want to get a reminder about replays and resources. You can go to kentsanders.net/selfpubcourse, and the password is selfpub2016, 2016. And I don't think the replay from last week is up there quite yet. I'm not quite finished editing that, but I will get that up as soon as I possibly can. Let's move on to the topic for tonight, which is formatting your book for ebook, print, and audio versions. Now, before I jump into some specifics, let's talk about some overall kind of issues related to this topic. More than the technical information that I want to share, more than specific processes, ABC, 1, 2, 3, XYZ, those kinds of things, far more important than that is the key issue of your mindset with this whole process. Here's what I mean. Your mindset with this process, whenever you're dealing with something technical like this, particularly in self-publishing, your mindset cannot be, all these formats sound like a real pain in the behind. I'm not sure I can learn all of this or that it's really worth it. I guarantee you, if you're dealing with self-publishing on any level, you're going to feel like that sometimes. This is a real pain. This is a lot of stuff to learn. These are a lot of steps to go through. I'm frustrated. That's just kind of part of the process of learning anything new, specifically with something like self-publishing where there can be a lot of technical sort of steps. It's not quite as technical as, like building a rocket or fixing a car, I don't think, but Nevertheless, it can be technical in some places. So rather, your mindset has to be something like this. Wow, look at all these great opportunities to make my book available in different versions and different ways I can reach potential readers and help them change their lives. So you have to look at it not as an issue of, wow, this is such a pain in the neck to go through all these steps to make my book available in different versions, but it's more of an issue of, hey, look at all these cool opportunities that we have today, that didn't really exist 10 or 20 years ago. And these are some cool ways that you can serve your audience and bring some real change in their lives and do something that wasn't available to us just, again, a decade or two ago. So that's definitely a mindset issue. It's not an issue of, wow, what a pain in the neck. It's an issue of, look at all these cool opportunities that I have to learn. One thing that helps in this process for sure is keeping your ideal reader in mind. So we talked about that earlier in the course in, I think, week 1 or 2. I think it was week 1. I'm not for sure. Maybe it was week 2. Yes, I think it was week 2 now that I think of it. We talked about developing your ideal reader, or what you might call your avatar, keeping that person at the top of your mind whenever you're writing. When you do that, it makes this process much easier because you kind of can see the end goal and you know that there's a real person on the other end of this self-publishing process. Not just, sticking it out there in cyberspace or something. It's real people that you're going to impact. To me, that makes a huge difference. And keeping that real, that picture of a real person or a picture of real people in your mind who's at the end of this self-publishing process really makes a big difference. So here are the objectives that we're going to be looking at tonight. First is I want you to know the 3 book formats that are popular today and the benefits and challenges of producing each one. The second objective for tonight is to understand the basic tools and processes required for each version of your book. And then number 3, I want you to decide which version of your book you should produce first. Hopefully at this point you have an idea of a book that you're working on. Maybe you have already completed a book and you're just wanting to get it to market or make it available. Maybe you have no clue what you want to write about, but you just took this course because it sounded interesting. All of those are wonderful, and it doesn't matter where you are in that continuum of self-publishing and writing. What does matter is that you take the next step. And one thing I want to push you toward tonight in this topic of formatting your book for different versions is to decide what you're going to do first, whether it's print, audio, or ebook. And I'll give you my answer to that and what I think it should be at the end of the class. Let me grab a quick drink here. Here's our outline for tonight. First of all, we're going to talk about the topic, 1 book, 3 formats. And specifically, we're going to look at the benefits and the challenges of doing ebooks, print books, and audiobooks. I want to kind of break that down for you really specifically. Secondly, we're going to talk about some tools and resources that are required for putting together each version. And then number 3, I want to wrap up with the question, where should you start? Which one should you pursue first? So I'll give you my answer to that a little bit later on. All right, folks, you ready? Let's jump on the roller coaster right here. Let's dive into the topic of ebooks. We're going to start out with ebooks because that is where a lot of people start these days because ebooks have been so popular the last, probably 10 years. Maybe not 15 years, that's probably pushing it. I mean, ebooks have been around a long time, but ebooks in like a popular format that you can read on devices have probably only been around, 8 or 10 years at like a really popular level. So with each one of these versions, I want to look at the benefits and the challenges of each one because there are things that are different with each one. With ebooks, here are some of the benefits. Number 1 is that ebooks make a great impulse buy. You can hop on Amazon, you can see an ebook that's only there for a few bucks normally. Sometimes they're more expensive than that, particularly if a publisher is putting those out. Sometimes I think they're kind of expensive. But many times, if it's a self-published book, they're not going to be more than $5 or $6, maybe $7 or $8 at the very top of the level. Normally, ebooks that are self-published are $3 to $5. That's kind of like the sweet spot, that $2.99 to $4.99 price range. So ebooks are usually the least expensive option for readers out of all these 3 formats that we're talking about. So they do make a great impulse buy. Another benefit of ebooks is that usually they're the easiest and the fastest type of book to produce. You can do them very quickly if you're familiar with the steps to doing that. And then third, you can add ebooks to the print version of a book to increase the value of the print version without adding cost to yourself. What I mean by that is, let's say I have a print version of my book, which I do. I can hand sell that book to someone, or they can buy it, let's say on Amazon or just wherever. They could buy that print book, and in the back of that in the back of that print book, there's a page where I talk about the bonus items. And if they've bought the print book, or I guess if somebody gives it to them, or they could just look at it and do it, you know. They don't necessarily have to buy it. They just have to have the actual print version. But there's a page where I talk about the bonus items, and it says, go to such and such website, and it's just a page on my website. And you can download the audiobook and the ebook versions of the Artist's Suitcase. So essentially what that does is it lets me give them more value out of the book. Now, it's the same book, whether it's print, ebook, or audio, but it does give me something more value to give them. So it kind of gives the impression that I'm being generous, which I think it is real generosity. I'm not trying to pull one over on somebody, but it's a matter of doing a value-added type of item, if that makes sense, which is kind of cool. And the thing is that when you're talking about audiobooks and ebooks and digital products, it doesn't really cost you anything to give those away, you know, to somebody else who's already bought another version of your book. So it's kind of a cool deal. Now, there are some challenges to ebooks. I don't think there are many challenges once you know the process, but one of the challenges is simply learning ebook formatting and figuring out the tools that you're going to use to produce the ebook. Also, there's the potential extra expense of using Scrivener software if you decide to use that. I'll talk about what that is a little bit later when we get into the nitty-gritty of how to make an ebook. But anyway, for now, Scrivener is a very helpful piece of software. So those are some benefits and challenges of ebooks. Let's move on to print books, my personal favorite. There are some definite benefits to doing a print book. One of the most important benefits, I think, of having a print version of your book is that just by definition, print books are more impressive than ebooks are, because you can only experience an ebook on a device or a computer, but a print book just gives the impression of, well, this is a tactile, real object. And especially if you do a good job on your print book, if it looks, you know, like a well-done book. And I'll just be honest with you, I was very happy with the way that my print version of the Artist's Suitcase turned out. My whole goal with doing a print version was to have it look as close as possible to something that a publisher would produce. Now, I think a pretty discerning person can look at it and they can quickly tell it's a self-published book, because all you have to do is open up the back cover and you see some information on the very last page that tells you it's a CreateSpace book if you know what to look for. It has the date it was printed, and it tells you where it was printed. You know, and if you've seen enough of those, you kind of know immediately how this book was printed. But I was very happy with the way it turned out, and I worked really, really hard to make it look like a super good quality version of a print book. And that was very intentional on my part. That was important to me. That said, I look at it today and I still, you know, there are still mistakes in it, but, you know, at some point you just got to kind of let it go and move on with life. You can't keep going back to the same thing, you know, and correct every little tiny thing in it, I suppose. But that being said, I think print books, there's something to a print book that people still really like. You know, a print book basically says that you took the time and effort to create the version of your book that a lot of people really, really enjoy. So that's kind of cool. Also, doing a print book gives you a great sense of satisfaction. There's something just at a very primal level that's really satisfying about making an actual physical product. Anybody who's had a business where you've made tactile physical things, you know that satisfaction that you don't get from just creating digital products. You know, I do a lot of computer work for teaching and courses and email and all that kind of stuff. But there's something special about producing an actual tangible physical object that's really satisfying. Number 3, one of the other benefits of print books is that you can give them away as a gift, or you can treat it as a business card. So it's kind of cool because something I do on a regular basis is if somebody helps me in some way, or I want to give a gift to someone, many times I'll just send them a copy of my print book. I'll give you an example. A perfect example of this is probably 6 weeks ago or so. Because of my involvement with the Goodman Project, and I've talked about that before on this course, because of my involvement there, I've gotten to interview some cool people, and other people have interviewed me as well, and I've made some neat connections. So I had a guy interview me from a radio station out, gosh, where was it? It was BYU Radio, Brigham Young University. Now, I'm not Mormon. And even though this radio station is, BYU is obviously Mormon, it's not like a Mormon talk show. It's kind of like a radio show where they talk about, culture and society and Christian things, that sort of stuff. So anyway, they interviewed me because of an article they found of mine on the Goodman Project. And as a result of getting to be interviewed on the show, I thought, hey, I want to send a thank you note to the guy who interviewed me. It was just really kind of him to invite me onto his show and to do that. And also I wanted to thank his assistant who kind of lined up that interview. So instead of just sending a handwritten thank you note, I sent both of them of my book. And I just said, hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the way that, I've got to be part of your show and serve your audience. Here's a copy of my book. Thank you for helping to unlock other people's creative potential through your service to them and through your radio show. And I like to do that because it's just a way for me to express something tangible and to give a small gift to somebody. So in that way, you can almost treat your book as a business card, like you give a business card to somebody to say, hey, this is me, this is what I'm about, this is my information. I think your book can almost act as a business card where you don't think of it in terms of, okay, I've got to sell every one of these, I always have to make money from this. No, when you do self-publishing, your print books don't cost that much to begin with. So I am pretty liberal with giving my books away. Sometimes my wife looks at me and goes, why are you giving so many books away? Because she's thinking, hey, don't give away your profits, which is pretty smart. She's a smart person. That being said, though, I do like to give my books away maybe a little bit too much because I think it is kind of a nice calling card. Let's go on to the next thing here with print books. I can talk about this stuff all day because I get really excited about it. Number 4 on the left-hand column is that many people dislike ebooks. Believe it or not, with all of our technology today, there are still many people who hate reading ebooks. And, even though I like ebooks, I still have a very big soft spot for print books. So print is not going away. There's still a huge market for print books, and that's why I think it is still important. And then finally, the final benefit of print books, at least the final thing I want to mention here tonight, is that the profit margin is way higher on a print book if you sell it yourself than it is on an ebook. So I only make, like a couple of bucks on every ebook that I sell. In fact, it's $1 or something. I forget what it is. I sell it for, I think, $4.99 on Amazon, and I get, I forget how much I make. It's somewhere around $2 or $3, I think. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it's not very much. But with the print book, my cost for the book is, I say it's $3 here, but it's actually something like $2.58 from CreateSpace, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So my cost is $3. When I hand sell it to someone, when I sell it in person, that's $12. So my profit is $9. Of course, I have to pay taxes on that, so I end up actually netting, probably $6 or $6.50 or something of that nature. If I sell it on Amazon, if somebody gets on Amazon and they buy the book, my profit is around $5. So I net maybe $3.75 after taxes or something like that. So, any way you slice it, either one of those ways that I sell a print book, I still make more than I do on an ebook. So I definitely like print books. And why is that? Because print books have a higher perceived value than ebooks. It's hard to put a price tag on a digital product because it doesn't cost anything to deliver it. But with a print item, people already have kind of an intrinsic idea of what that print book should cost because we're all used to buying those. Now, there are some challenges to producing a print book. One is just simply learning the proper formatting and the design process for a print book. Also, a print book requires a greater eye for detail than an ebook. And the reason is because when you do a print book, you have to make sure everything looks exactly correct on every single page, or at least as best that you can make it. With ebooks, the e-reader or the app does a lot of that work for you, of the font and the size and the hyphenation and all that stuff. And then third, print books can be time-consuming due to the process. So you got to have some patience if you're doing all this stuff yourself. Now, if you have somebody do this for you, if you pay somebody for formatting and all that stuff, you don't have to mess with it. But I'm kind of a proponent of doing it yourself. I like DIY publishing. But some people may find that you would just rather pay for it and be done with it, which is totally fine, and I would understand that. So those are print books. Let's move on to audiobooks, kind of a rundown of the benefits and challenges. On the benefits side, there are definitely some benefits to doing an audiobook. One of them is that there is a huge market for audiobooks because a lot of readers like to listen to their books. For instance, they can listen to them when they drive, when they work out, while they're doing dishes. When I'm doing dishes or cooking in the kitchen, I don't cook all that much, but whenever I do, I love to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. So there's a massive market for audiobooks. And, because people will buy audiobooks, why not put your book in that version since you've already written it? Just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Number two, on the benefit side, this is the same as with the ebook version, is that you can use the audiobook as a value-added item to the print version of your book. It doesn't cost you anything to deliver that audiobook digitally, just like it doesn't really cost you anything to deliver that ebook version. But with the print version, you can say, hey, here are a couple of bonus items, here's the ebook version, here's the audiobook version, and whatnot. So it's kind of a value-added thing that doesn't really cost you anything extra, except your time in creating the digital product. Number three, on the benefits side, an audiobook will give you greater reach for minimal effort. Now, when I say minimal effort, I don't mean necessarily just 30 extra minutes, because it does take time to produce a good quality audiobook. However, because you've already written the book, as I mentioned before, why not put it in as many formats as you possibly can and extend your reach, since the content is already there. Another benefit of audiobooks is that whenever you use ACX, which is what you're going to use with audiobooks, that is the audio arm of Amazon, just like CreateSpace is the print arm of Amazon. Whenever you upload a book to ACX, they will give you 25 free promo codes, and you can just give those out randomly to people. You can give them to your email list subscribers. You can give them to friends. You can run a contest on Facebook. You can do a million things with those, but that's kind of a cool deal. Also, finally, in the benefits side of audiobooks is that, in my experience, doing an audiobook is really good practice for doing a podcast because it involves the exact same audio process. I mean, you're just making audio. Audio is audio is audio, whether you do an audiobook or a podcast or whatever it is, or radio show. So if you ever decide to get into podcasting, putting together an audiobook is a great way to kind of put your toe in the water and learn about those processes. Now, audiobooks do have some challenges to them, and just as with the other versions of your book, there are some processes to learn. Specifically with audiobooks, you're going to have to learn some recording and editing processes if you're doing this yourself. If you're a person who doesn't like to mess with that stuff, honestly, you'll probably be very frustrated with that process. I'm not going to lie to you. However, if you're up for a challenge and you're okay with learning some technical things and you just are kind of determined to do it, which I hope that you are, then I think you'll have fun with that process. Secondly, in the challenges column of audiobooks, there's the challenge of learning the technical requirements of ACX, which, as I mentioned before, is the audio arm of Amazon. When you upload a book to ACX, that's going to automatically make it available on Amazon. It's going to make it available on Audible. It's going to make it available on iTunes and other places as well, I think, which is pretty cool. However, I'm going to say that ACX has very, very stringent requirements for their audio. And it took me a little while to kind of figure out how to do all the stuff that they required in terms of, the specifics of the volume and all this other stuff that they required. That took a little bit of time, but it was worth it because now I know how to do it. So, but that was a challenge. I'm not going to lie to you. Then finally, there is the challenge, if you want to put it this way, of the extra expense of purchasing a good microphone and maybe some other equipment if you don't have it, for creating an audiobook. So that's ebook, print, and audio versions of a book. Just kind of a quick rundown of the benefits and the challenges of each version. Let's dive into creating an audiobook. Creating an ebook. But before we do that, let me take a second here and just kind of pause and let me ask you, up to this point in the course, knowing what you know about these 3 different versions of your book, which one do you think you would be most likely to dive into first? So just give that some thought for just a second. Let me grab a quick drink. Okay, so hopefully you thought about that for just a couple seconds. One thing to keep in mind with this whole self-publishing process is that it's really tempting when you finish writing a book. You know, there's different steps in the process of self-publishing. So kind of the first step is you decide what to write about and you figure out your audience. You know, the next step is writing a first draft of the book, at which you kind of go, oh, finally I finished the first draft. You know, then the next step is going through the edits and producing a final draft of the book. And at that point, when you produce the final draft of the book, that sort of feels like a finish line. And while, yes, that's a finish line, that's also another starting line. Because now you have to actually publish the book and put it into formats that people can buy and consume. So, you know, just when you get a book written and finished, don't think that's the end of the process. That's actually just the beginning of the process. And then, you know, you reach the finish line of publishing your book, you know, on different formats. And then it kind of feels like a major finish line, but then it's really not, because then you're going to start the process all over again when you start your next book. And I really, really want to expand your vision of this. Don't think of this as just, okay, I've got to write this one book, and then I'm going to publish it, and whew, man, I'm glad that's done. That was a really long process. That was really hard. No. I want you to think of that as just the tip of the iceberg. I want you to think of yourself as not just someone who writes a book. Think of yourself as someone who writes a whole series of books, or who not just writes a book or even a series of books or, you know, a number of books, but who writes books but also uses that same content as a course or as a seminar or a workshop, or you base coaching on that, or you base some type of ministry on that, or you make a sermon series out of that, or something else. So again, I want to go back to this idea of not just writing one book, but writing multiple books over time, but also using that book as kind of the hub of these other ministries and services, products, different things that you can offer people. You know, whether it's paid or it's free, or whether it's a ministry or a business, or however you frame that is not really the important thing. The important thing is that think of the book as the hub from which all these other spokes can emanate from, if that makes sense. So the book is kind of the hub, you know, of the whole wheel of how you're impacting people's lives through all these other things that the book kind of produces. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's move on here and dive into the nitty-gritty of creating an ebook. First things first, let's get this out of the way. You're going to sell your book primarily on Amazon. And let me actually do this. Let me get out of my PowerPoint presentation, because we're going to be let me do this. Okay. There's this feature on the new iOS on Mac where you can put these two things side by side, which is kind of a cool feature. Hopefully you all can still see that. And it kind of like, it automatically fills half of the screen. It's kind of a cool deal. Anyway, I'm going to keep it like this, I think, for a while, because we're going to be back and forth here. So I'm sorry we're not in like regular PowerPoint mode. You're sort of seeing me in whatever view this is called in PowerPoint. I don't remember. It is normal view, I guess. Kind of the writing and editing view. I'm going to keep it there for a while because we're going to be back and forth between here and my browser. So first things first, you're going to sell your book primarily on Amazon. The reason why is because Amazon is a massive store, and you need to be on Amazon. If you're going to be somewhere, you need to be on Amazon. So this is on the right here. You see not a copy of my book. You see the page on Amazon for my book, The Artist's Suitcase. And it's great that it's there. One of the benefits of being on Amazon is that Amazon doesn't just sell stuff, it also is going to recommend items to potential buyers. So when people go to this page for my book, they're also going to see these items here that other people have bought when they bought my book. Now that's kind of cool because Elizabeth Gilbert, is a very well-known author. I mean, that's pretty cool to see my book, which is, I'm basically like a nobody. It's kind of cool to see my book next to her book on the Amazon page. That's pretty nifty. That's one of the benefits of being on Amazon. Now, there are some other retailers like Barnes & Noble, iTunes, etc. that sell ebooks, but Amazon is by far the most important because, well, it's the biggest one, for one thing, but also because Amazon has a whole ecosystem of selling things. Now, other stores do as well, but Amazon is just kind of the monster, and you do not want to ignore Amazon because you'll do so at your own risk, for sure. For instance, here's my book on Barnes & Noble. This is the print version. I do not have the ebook version up here. Maybe I should put it up there, but honestly, you make so many more sales on Amazon than you do anywhere else. To me, I don't even know if it's worth it to put it on Barnes & Noble. Probably it is, but I just haven't done it up to this point. So how this got on Barnes & Noble's website is through CreateSpace, which I'll get to a little bit later. So back to over here on the left, point number 3, you will format for Kindle the Amazon e-reader device and app. I'm sure you've all heard of that, but that's what you're going to be formatting for, is for Kindle. Here's the way this works, is that you're going to upload a Word doc, a PDF, an EPUB file, or a .mobi file to Kindle. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of that in just a little bit. And I recommend using a .mobi format because it's the native Kindle format. EPUB is kind of like a universal ebook format. PDF is a static, well, mostly a static kind of format. We've all seen PDFs. Pretty much what you see is what you get with a PDF. And then a Word document, we're all familiar with that. The problem with Word documents, using those as the basis for an ebook, is that the formatting can go haywire quite frequently. So a lot of people use Word documents for Kindle books, and they have great luck with them. Personally, I don't like them. I'd rather stick with the .mobi because that's the native Kindle format. I use an app called Scrivener to format ebooks, and let me show you what this looks like. It is right here. This is a site called literatureandlatte.com/scrivener.php. Scrivener is an app, which you might call a program, I guess, but it's an app that you can use to format print books and ebooks. And a lot of people actually use it as a word processor. I don't like it as a word processor. I don't really like the way it looks, but it works. It's very functional. In fact, it's more than functional. It's extremely powerful. I think that actually kind of works against it in some ways because it does so much that to me, it's kind of complicated to learn. I do know how to use it at a basic level to format ebooks, but that's about all I know how to do with it. Here is like the view of Scrivener. Oh, that was Dollar Shave Club. Used to subscribe to that. I don't know why I'm showing you that. If just that you saw this thing, Potty Talk, behind the mirror. That's some kind of a blog thing they have on there. Dollar Shave Club is a thing for men. They sell razor blades and stuff. It's kind of an interesting company. Anywho, let's get back to Scrivener. That was a random observation. So this is the Scrivener app. This is my Artist Suitcase book in the Scrivener app. Basically what you do is you put your book in here and you format it like they say to format it, and then you do this, you go through this process where you basically compile it and you export it as a file that you can then upload to Amazon. And again, I think Scrivener is kind of hard to use. Nevertheless, I learned how to use it because it works really, really super well when you get comfortable with using it. Other people may have a lot better luck with it and be able to learn it quickly, but I found it kind of a challenge to learn. Excuse me. Now, there is a course that you can buy. Let me go back to sorry, I just lost it. There it is. There's a course you can buy called Learn Scrivener Fast. Actually, this gentleman, Joseph Michael, is from St. Louis, my hometown. He put together this course called Learn Scrivener Fast. That is a complete Scrivener course. It's very well done, very, very detailed, and you can buy that course to learn Scrivener in a super-duper detailed way. I have purchased it. I haven't gone through all of it. What I saw was very, very helpful. I don't remember how much it cost, but you can check that out for yourself if you're interested in doing that. Suffice it to say that I think Scrivener is really the way to go in formatting an ebook because it just works. You've got to spend some time getting to know it, but it does just kind of work. Now, the cool thing about Scrivener, let me go back here, is that they have this free trial period, which is a 30-day free trial. What that means is that it's 30 days of use. It's not 30 calendar days. So if you, over a 6-month period, only open the app and use it for 30 days, that means you're not going to be paying for it for 6 months. So on the 31st day that you use it, then you'll have to pay for it, or just stop using it, I guess. It's $45, which is a bargain for what you're actually getting. So I like it, although it was a little bit of a challenge to learn. All right, let's go on to the next thing. Now, if you decide not to use Scrivener to format your book, there are some other options that you have. One is that you can upload a Word document to Kindle. More specifically, upload it to KDP, which I'll get to that, what that is in just a second. You can upload a Word document. I don't really recommend doing this because of what I mentioned before, the formatting issues and whatnot. But some people have great luck with that. I personally don't care for it too much. And I've emailed you all my notes, so I've got links in there if you want to see specifically how to format a Word document for an EPUB file. Also, you can convert a Word doc to EPUB using this resource called Calibre. I think that's how you say that. Again, you can see the notes that I sent for some instructions. This is what it looks like. This is, they call this a one-stop solution to all your ebook needs. Essentially, you can use that to format your ebook for Kindle. A lot of people use it and like it, I guess. And then once you're done producing that EPUB file, you can preview your file in the Kindle Previewer app. That's something you can download from Kindle, where basically you open up your EPUB file on the Kindle Previewer app, and it shows you what it's going to look like on various kinds of Kindle devices and apps. It's kind of a cool deal. So how do you actually do this? Let's say you have your book formatted. You either have a .mobi file, which is the native Kindle format. You have an EPUB file. You have a Word document. You have a PDF, whatever you have. What do you actually do with that? What you do is you go to kdp.amazon.com to set up your author account. And I'm not going to walk through that whole process now because it's kind of an extensive deal. Let me do this. So let me sign in here to my KDP account. What I like about this is it's connected directly to Amazon. So again, you're part of the whole big Amazon ecosystem. Here's my book, The Artist Suitcase. I've got some different options here. Let me grab a drink real quick. So what you would do is when you log in here for the first time, you create your account. You're going to create a new title. Then what it does is it walks you through this pretty clear process of putting in the book title, the edition number, publisher if you have a publisher, description of the book, contributors, language, all this kinds of stuff. You have to select the categories that the book will fall into, and there's kind of an art to that. When the book will be available, you upload the cover, you upload the actual book file right here. So whatever file that book exists in, whatever ebook file, you're going to upload that right there. Then it's also going to walk you through, and I can't move on to the next thing yet because I haven't uploaded anything here. You can set what kind of rights you want, how you want to price the book. you can enroll it in what's called KDP Select, which essentially you do this 90 days at a time, and there's kind of a deal with this is you can give the book away for, I think it is 5 days out of every 90 days. You can make it cost nothing. The reason that you would do that is if you wanted a bunch of people to download it, then they would have that book, then you, basically it's like free publicity. Now you're not making anything from those sales, but it is free publicity. I have not enrolled my book in there because I generally think that this doesn't apply to every situation, but in general, many times when people receive something for free, they don't always value it. It's kind of like if somebody gives you a free book, they're kind of like, it's free, you know. But if you charge something for it, people tend to value it more. That's just kind of human nature. You know, things that you pay money for, you tend to value and take care of more. That's just kind of how we're wired up as human beings. So I tend to not pay much attention to KDP Select. I think there are much better ways to promote your book that aren't just like trying to beg people to download it, essentially. That's sort of how it seems to me. Other people could totally disagree with that and use KDP Select to great advantage. I have not been one of those, so it could be that I have some things to learn there, so probably the case. I always have some things to learn. Anyway, that is kind of how you upload your book, and you know, there's definitely a process you go through with this, but in a nutshell, that's it. Let me close some of these windows here. All right, let's go back to the presentation. I have some notes in the Word document that I sent you about how to format for KDP. So there's a link in there that walks you through the whole process. All right, let's go on to the next item, which is creating a print book. And what you're going to do to create a print book is use CreateSpace, which is Amazon's service for printing and distributing books. Now, why would you do that? There are several reasons. One is that it's directly connected to the Amazon ecosystem. And that is a really, really good thing because it makes it very simple to sell your print book on Amazon. If you notice here, okay, again, this is over here on the right, this is my books page on Amazon. Let me widen this out a little bit. You'll notice that it lists the Kindle version, which is the ebook, obviously. It also lists paperback. It also lists Audible. Now, the reason it's listing this as $1.99 here when I click that is because I already have the other version. So when you have the paperback version, it's going to give you the Kindle version for $1.99. Now, when you actually buy the print version and you look at the back, you're going to see you can download it for free. You can download it from me for free, or you can pay $1.99 to get it like on your app, which actually you can do that anyway, but that's kind of a side issue. So it's kind of cool when you use KDP, which is Kindle for ebooks, when you use CreateSpace for print, and when you use ACX for Audible, which we'll get to that in a bit. Those are all part of the Amazon ecosystem, and it's all very, very simple to sell different versions of your book on the same Amazon page. So that's why I like this so much. Let's go back here. Another cool thing about CreateSpace is that you can make your books available at other retailers like Barnes & Noble. So on CreateSpace, which I will go there now, on CreateSpace, it gives you the option of distributing your book, not just to Amazon, but to other retailers also, as well as libraries and other places, which is kind of cool. Third, over here on the left, customer service from Amazon is superior. They are very, very good. I've always had excellent luck with their customer service from CreateSpace. And the number 4, the process for doing this is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to log in here to my CreateSpace account. Oops, no, I do not. Here's my book. Got a few bucks there that they haven't paid me yet, or I guess this month. Now, I'm not going to walk you through the whole major process here, you know, bit by bit, because it's kind of a lengthy deal. But in general, let me hit a few highlights. So this is what CreateSpace looks like whenever you kind of get in here. Now, there are a couple of downsides of using CreateSpace. I'm over here back on the left. Some people, not everybody, but some people who are really into the self-publishing community, they're really into the print book deal, they feel that CreateSpace's books are not as good a quality as others like Lightning Source or other sort of print-on-demand services. I've been very happy with CreateSpace. I have zero complaints about them. But some people think that other printers are slightly better. But, you know, to be honest with you, tons of people use CreateSpace, and I think their quality is very, very good. Another potential question mark about using CreateSpace is that whenever you have a book printed through them, their shipping is really slow and really expensive. So that's kind of a downside for me. I think, honestly, I can't prove this, but my gut feeling is that their shipping is so expensive, they kind of make up for the fact that when you buy your own print books, they're kind of cheap. Maybe that's why, I have no idea, but it does seem kind of slow and pricey to me. Maybe that's just because I use Amazon Prime and I'm used to getting my stuff really fast from Amazon, so you know, taking like a week and a half to get something seems like it takes forever. So when I've ordered my books, when I've ordered my own books, I almost always have them expedited, even though it's really expensive. I guess I'm just really impatient. So let me show you a couple things here on CreateSpace. Again, I'm not going to walk through all of this in total detail because that would take far too long. But essentially, whenever you set up your book, you're going to put in the title, the ISBN, which they will assign one to you at no cost if you don't have one already. Now, the reason that you would want to buy one is if you're going to sell it elsewhere. But if you're only going to basically sell it on Amazon, you can just take the one that they're going to assign to you, and it's fine. You're going to upload the interior of the book, which they call that the interior file, which is everything but the cover. Then you upload the cover separately. Then you have the complete setup. Then you do a file review to make sure everything looks good, and then you proof your book. Now, this is kind of interesting. Let me show you this. I want to show you what it looks like whenever you finally get to this stage where the book is proofed. You know, you have the cover finished and all that good stuff. You put it all together, and then you can use their digital proofer. It brings up a tool like this. When you get to this stage, it's all worth it. You can finally get an idea of what it looks like. So you've uploaded the cover, you've uploaded the interior files, and then you have this tool that lets you see exactly what the book is going to look like. And having been through this process already, I can tell you this is extremely accurate. The book does look exactly like this whenever you get it. They do a phenomenal job of giving you this tool that walks you through everything in great detail. Now, this is kind of cool. You have this tool here that shows you what the physical book's going to look like. You know, this is kind of what we all want, isn't it? Honestly, you want that sort of final finished product, and it spins there, you know, like it's on some TV show or something. But it's kind of fun. You can go the other direction. That's kind of neat, and I can tell you, you know, that's exactly what it looks like. So they take into consideration the dimensions of the book, you know, how thick it is, and all that good stuff. Then you can walk through the interior files, and you can flip through the book, and that's exactly what it looks like. So it's kind of a cool thing. You can spot mistakes right away. It's a very helpful thing. Also, though, you can download a PDF of that exact same file right here, and then you can look that over. I recommend whenever you go through this process, if you do a print book, that you download that file, print it out, and read through the whole thing. You know, probably multiple times, honestly, to catch all the mistakes. If it sounds time-consuming, it's because it is time-consuming. But that's the only way, really, that you can produce a high-quality book. Let's go on to the next thing here. Let me grab a drink. Okay, let me walk you through the CreateSpace process. I don't want to spend a lot of time on each one of these points because there's a number of them. But let me expand this here again. And I also do want to say that things don't always go in this exact order, but it's pretty close. So here's the CreateSpace process, at least pretty close. You're going to set up your CreateSpace account, which I already showed you that. Decide what your book size is going to be. I chose 5 1/4 by 8 inches. The way that I decided on that book size is that I simply looked at other books that I liked, and I just picked the size. I wanted something that was more of a, now it's not really a pocket size, but it's not a big book. I wanted something that was just a little bit smaller. Well, honestly, because the book isn't that long, and the smaller your book is physically, the more pages it's going to be. And, I wanted it to be over 100 pages. Because, something under 100 pages, it's kind of hard to call that a book. It is, but you kind of feel like it's sort of like a mini book or something. So I wanted it to be over 100 pages. Another reason, though, and this is very important, is that the book has to be over, I think, 100 pages on CreateSpace in order to have a printed spine. So, and you don't want to have a book that doesn't have the title on the spine because that looks really lame. I think it does. So you want to make sure and have something on the spine, the title and all, your name and all that stuff, so it looks like a real book. So that's another reason why I wanted a little bit of a smaller footprint size of the book. So you would download a Word template that matches your book size, and CreateSpace has all that stuff available. And the reason that you need to download a template from them is because it's set up with the right margins. Like, for example, the interior margins are going to be different than the exterior margins because, you've got to have more room on the inside because the book's going to be glued together. So you've got to have more margins on the inside. You're going to copy your text to the Word template and set up your front matter, which is title page, table of contents, dedication, any endorsements or blurbs, that kind of stuff. Make sure to set those up correctly. Also, if your book has any hyperlinks in it, then you're going to have to write those out in the text because obviously a print book doesn't have hyperlinks. That's a key thing. Decide on a font and a layout style, and this includes your line spacing. Now this may seem like a small matter. To me this was a really, really big deal because I wanted the book to look good. And I cannot tell you how many times I've come across a self-published book and they're using something like Arial as the font, which is not a good choice for a print book. Because in my mind, using a bad font for a print book automatically is going to scream, this is self-published, to anybody who picks it up. It's going to scream, this was made by a person who doesn't know how to design a print book. So aesthetics are really super important to me. I don't claim to be like Mr. Designer or anything like that, but I do think it matters that your book looks good. So pick a font that looks like a font that a publisher would use. I don't remember what I used specifically. I have to go back and look at it, but I spent a lot of time figuring out what font to use. And the line spacing, I think I used 1.15 or 1.25, I don't remember. But don't use just don't use the standard spacing that you would use in a Word document. Space it out a little bit so it looks right. Make sure the right justification is turned on so that the sides, so that it's even on both sides of the paragraph. All this stuff takes time. It really does. But if you want your book to look good, then you just kind of have to understand it's going to take time to do this. Or you can pay somebody to do it, which probably is a lot easier in the long run. But I'm anal retentive about this kind of stuff, so I enjoyed this process. Don't forget to include your front matter, which I mentioned that briefly before, such as your dedication page, table of contents, any endorsements or blurbs, and also the copyright page. That's really, really important. And if you want, all you have to do is look at my book, and that kind of gives you a template for what to put on the copyright page. You can steal that because I stole it from somebody else. Everybody else has stolen it from everybody else, so we all include the same kinds of stuff. Something else that's important is to use Roman numerals instead of Arabic numbers for the front matter. And you can do this by setting up sections in the Word document. I know all this sounds anal retentive, and it's the kind of stuff a lot of people hate. However, if you're going to do a print book, you just kind of have to be ready to do all this stuff to make it look like an authentic book. Make sure the headers look correct. For example, the headers are what's at the top of every page, and in most books it'll be the author's name on one side, then like on every odd page, or in the title of the book on every even page, or vice versa. I forget which one it is. But in the front matter of the book, I actually used a different headers for each section, which was a pain in the neck to set up, but I did it because that's what a lot of other books do, so I wanted to do that as well. On the back cover, you want to include some blurbs from people, a short bio of yourself. You can include a picture of yourself if you want, and a book description that is going to entice readers. Make sure and leave room for the ISBN code on the back cover as well. And as I mentioned a week or two ago, make sure and hire a graphic designer for this process. Don't do it yourself unless you're really, really good at that. And a graphic designer will make sure to leave room for that ISBN code, which you will get from CreateSpace. CreateSpace actually adds that in when they print it. You don't add that in yourself. They add it in for you. But you have to leave space in the right area on the back of your book. And you will do that whenever they give you the template for the cover. If all this sounds complicated, don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about it until you actually get into the process. Something else that's important is always back up your work. If you don't, and something crashes and you lose a bunch of work, that's not going to be cool. I mentioned this before, but when you're proofreading, print out the book and read it. You'll catch mistakes that you won't see on screen, I guarantee. When you're finished with all this, you've uploaded it, you've proofed it online, then order a physical copy, order a proof, is what it's called, from CreateSpace. And when you get that proof, you're going to find mistakes in there that you didn't see anywhere else. And you're going to be discouraged and probably mad at yourself that you have found so many additional mistakes, but don't be mad. That's just a part of the process. I could not believe how many mistakes I found in my actual printed book when I got it for the first time. It was kind of discouraging, to be honest with you. But I realized, hey, that's how this proofing process works with books. So, kind of the deal is, if you want to be an author who's taken seriously, if you want to self-publish your books and have people respect the stuff that you write, you've got to make sure it's as good a quality as you can possibly make it. Which means things like being a little bit picky about, being a lot picky about the fonts that you use, about catching grammar errors in punctuation, and being really picky about the cover and all that stuff. So keep correcting it until it's as good as it possibly can be. One thing I'm going to also mention here before we move on to audiobooks, and I know we're running a little bit over time, so I apologize. If you order books for an event like a book launch party or something like that, make sure and leave plenty of time for CreateSpace shipping. I made a couple of mistakes in that regard and didn't leave enough time to order books. So make sure you leave a couple of weeks at least for shipping, unless you want to pay out the nose for fast shipping, which you probably don't want to do, because I don't like to do that either. Let's go on to audiobooks. This is actually not going to take that much time because I just want to mention a few things. And should you decide to dive into audiobooks at some point, just connect with me and I can walk you through some more details, but I'm not going to go through every little thing tonight. Something that you're going to need if you're going to do audiobooks is a good microphone. One that I recommend is the ATR 2100 USB microphone. And this is made by a company called Audio-Technica. And let me go to Amazon here and I'll show you. That is, get out of that, get out of that. It is this microphone right here, the ATR 2100 USB. This is a really good microphone and it's really cheap. It has great quality. I have zero regrets about buying it. I think it's a wonderful mic. You'll need a mic stand and a mic cord. The cool thing about this mic is that you can plug it directly into your computer, into your USB slot, which I really like. You're also going to need some recording and editing software. I use an app called Audacity, which you see here. This is really helpful. For instance, let me Let me see if I can record something here. Check 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've recorded a little bit there, and really this is pretty easy to learn. You just, you can cut stuff, you can edit it. You've got, so say if you want to put some effects on it, you go up here to Effect, you can amplify it. There's just tons and tons of effects that you can use on Audacity. That's what I used for my audiobook, and was very, very happy with the result. Audacity is actually free, and you can get it by going to, you just type in Audacity into Google. You have to spell it right, first of all. AudacityTeam.org. You can download it. It's a phenomenal tool. I love it. It's very, very helpful. And it's free, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. Then what you do, basically, after you finish each chapter or segment of the book, you're going to do some editing and some sweetening and go through a bunch of technical things that you would, I'm not going to go through all those right now, but go through the things to sweeten your audio file and get it to specs that ACX is going to require, and I'll go over to ACX here in just a second. Then basically you're going to export the audio, and then you'll export that as an MP3. Then you will upload that to ACX. Now ACX is kind of like KDP is for eBooks, and CreateSpace is for print books on Amazon. ACX is an Amazon platform that is audiobooks, and it's very, very helpful. For instance, here's my Artist Suitcase book under completed projects. Now you notice here that I've only sold 20 audiobooks, and I've given away a whole bunch of them. And that doesn't seem like a very impressive figure, but for somebody like me, who I'm not like a big time author or anything like that, hey, I'll take 20 sales. That's 20 more ebooks that I sold before I put it on, ACX. So, it doesn't sound like much, but it's something. It's a good start. And at the very least, my book is on there and available. And I've gone through the process, which is very helpful. I've got this link. Oops, what did I do with the link? Hold on 1 second. Oh, here we go. I've got this link here in the notes that I sent that goes through how this process works. So if you're an author, narrator, studio pro, agent, publisher, or author who narrates, which is going to be what you probably are, click on that and it's going to walk you through the process of what to do. So you're going to create the audiobook. There's a lot that's involved in that. Upload your files, and then it's available for sale on there. And the cool thing is that it links directly to your Amazon page for the book, if you've already got a Kindle or paperback version of it up there. So that's a pretty cool deal. I enjoy that. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I'm back. So that is ACX. Now, one thing I do want to mention, that a couple of other things about ACX before we start to wrap up here, is that you can have others narrate your audiobook. That is definitely an option that you have. For instance, if you go back here, I'm an author, then you can actually hire people to narrate your audiobook for you. In fact, I've got a good friend who started out his career doing that as an audiobook narrator and did pretty well at that. Now he does something else related to audio production, but there are lots of people who do this full time for a living. You can either pay somebody, or you can actually do a royalty split with them, where you have an agreement like you get X percent of the sales, they get X percent, or whatever. So all kinds of ways you can approach this. If you don't think of yourself as a narrator, you do not have to narrate your own book. I personally did because I enjoyed it. I think it turned out pretty well, but you do not have to do that. Also, another cool thing about ACX is that whenever you upload your book there, it's going to distribute it to Audible, to iTunes, and to Amazon. So we saw Amazon there, but I can go to audible.com, and here's my book available for sale. It's got a little sample. Got a sample there, which is kind of cool. If you go to iTunes, my audiobook is on there. So I really love the ACX system because it puts your audiobook into the hands of a lot of different people, which is kind of cool. So the question here is, where should you start with this process? My guess is probably by now you're a little bit confused, maybe you're really overwhelmed with all this information, and you're thinking, wow, I just am totally overwhelmed by all this. I don't even know where to start. I can't even, it's hard enough to get a book written without having to go through all this stuff. Here's the key, though, that I want you to remember. So just take a breath and always think this. Just take the next step. Whatever the right next step is, the next step for you might be deciding who your audience is and going back to week 1 and 2 of this course. The next step for you might be writing the next chapter of your book or just getting started on your book. The next step might be editing. The next step might be making an ebook. So that's totally depends on where you are. But just always think, what's the next step I need to take? Don't get overwhelmed by all the 100 other steps you're going to have to take. Just take the very next step. And if you take enough next steps, then you're going to wind up where you want. Here's what I would do. In almost every situation, I would recommend starting with an ebook because that is really a quick win. You can do an ebook faster than you can do the other kinds of books normally. And you can get your book on Amazon quickly. And when you see your book up there for sale on Amazon, then it's going to give you some momentum. And especially when you start making sales on your book, that really gives you some momentum because when people pay money for your book, that tells you there's value there. And if you can get one person to pay for your book, you can get more people to pay for your book. So that's just kind of how things work with that. Now, you can also totally give it away, which is awesome too. And in fact, I think giving your book away is a great strategy for getting email subscribers or having something of value to give to others or for publicity or marketing, that kind of stuff. Also, remember that you can outsource any of the things that we've talked about tonight to other people. I mean, shoot, you can actually outsource writing your book to somebody else. In fact, you would be absolutely shocked at how many well-known authors don't actually write their own books. They may have some thoughts that go into their books. They may have, they may have outlined the book, but they didn't actually sit down and write it. And that's fine because books get written all kinds of different ways. But you can have as much or as little help with any of these steps as you want. Most of them are going to cost some money, but that's okay because I think the final product is worth investing time, money, and energy into. And if you do nothing else that we've mentioned here tonight, if you do nothing else, at the very least, take your book and make it available as a PDF download on your website or on Facebook or somewhere. Just do something with it. Don't just let it sit on your hard drive and languish forever. I mean, you spent all this time working on something, so put it out there into the world, get it into the hands of people whose lives it'll change, and do something with that book. Don't let it just sit around collecting digital dust on your computer. All right, let's wrap this up here tonight with a couple of action steps. Number 1 is determine which version of your book you're going to start with. And most importantly, set a deadline. At least in your mind, set a deadline. Set a deadline for that book. And when you want to have it available in whatever version you decide you want to put it into. And then share your thoughts in the Facebook group. I would love to hear how you're coming along with this process and any struggles that you're having, any questions. Make sure and put those in the Facebook group so we can help each other. Next week, we're going to wrap up this course with the topic of influence, how to launch your book and expand your audience. Now, there's some tricky things with this, I think, with ministry professionals because, if we're doing our writing as part of a ministry context, that's going to change, obviously, how we're going to launch a book and market it and do all those kinds of things. And next week I want to give you some thoughts on what marketing actually is that takes it out of the realm of just like selling stuff. Marketing is actually a much broader concept, I think. We market, all of us market every day. We just don't realize that we're doing it or frame it in that way. But all of us market all the time, actually. All right, folks, that is it for tonight. God bless you guys, and I shall see you next week. Thanks.